I was an 18-year-old film student when I met the master of special effects to make this documentary about his life and work. Now, 30 years on, I will reveal Hollywood's greatest untold story of movie magic.
In 1933, a young boy went to the cinema and found a lifetime occupation. King Kong fired his imagination, his curiosity, and his ambition. Half a century later, Ray Harryhausen reflects back on his own creations: Sinbad, Gulliver, the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, Jason and the Argonauts, Clash of the Titans, and the host of fabulous creatures from the imagination and skill of the master of animation.
Now, for the first time, the secrets have been unearthed for those unmade films, missing scenes from the films you love, stunning artworks, models and test footage, all revealing new worlds, epic lands and fearsome creatures that until now had thought to have been lost for all time. Harryhausen The Lost Movies.
We've got a lovely John Walsh sandwich, ladies and gentlemen. It is nice, John. And do you know, it's a bit like chatting to old friends, so do forgive us, but this is not the first time we've met. It's wonderful for me because I've interviewed these two before, and I'm hoping this is not going to be the last time. But John, I wanted to kick off with you and come to Vanessa a little bit later. You put together really an amazing array of sketches, illustrations, photographs and clips which we're about to see, but and I would like you to talk us through them. So are we going to...
so let's kick off with the first kind of slide.
Yeah, brilliant. Because this is really your thing, so I'm sort of handing over to you. I will interject, and so will Vanessa. Vanessa just wanted to say to you, do interject at any point if you've got something marvellous to say. Brilliant.
Okay, let's move on to the first presentation slide. So effectively, the book has been 100 years in the making. It's Ray's centenary next year. You can see some of the wonderful artworks there on the book, some from the films he made, some he didn't. But who here has heard of Ray Harryhausen? I assume everyone? Yep. Yeah. So when Ray died, this is what George Lucas had to say, there would likely have been no Star Wars without Ray Harryhausen. So we're going to have a reflection here of some of Ray's films. These are all of the films that Ray made. We all have our favourites, don't we? Mm-hmm. These are the black and white era you're looking at first. Some of these have been colorised as well. And all of these feature in the Lost Movies book because we have different categories that include the films Ray didn't make and scenes apart from these films. Voyage of Sinbad there. Kerwin Matthews reprising the role for Gulliver. Mysterious Island. When we play this at Comic-Con, people cheer to their favourite posters, so feel free to favourites.
Well, I'm going to Rupert Jason the Argonauts, because that's my favourite. I remember watching that as a little girl.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, girl in a bikini, that's our films. Gosh, that's your favourite, isn't it? My favourite, Golden Voyage.
We're going to talk to Vanessa about that later, because I know there's a funny story about that, not now though.
Myself and Vanessa, we run the Harryhausen Foundation between us. And there's Alan Frizzle, our conservator, who's here today. Alan, I know you like that t-shirt. These are some of the creatures that have been recently conserved and restored.
And it's been a pleasure for me to see him actually, restore some of these creatures that had been in terrible state. And the last one was Talos.
There's you, look.
Don't look at me.
Go back to that one.
Right, so these are the categories for the Lost Movies book. So the films that Ray tried to make but didn't. Those films he turned down, which is fascinating to see what the outside world offered. And scenes, of course, cut from his own films. So we're going to be showing you examples of all of those today in this presentation.
So are we coming up to the 1930s now? Ah, good, because, now I could be wrong here, but during my research, is it true that Ray wanted to make the War of the Worlds before George Powell?
That's what I
Oh,
thought.
thank
Yes. Yes.
Oh, phew.
You know, in Hollywood, people rarely share ideas. Ray had mentioned to George Powell his idea of getting the option for War of the Worlds, and George Powell went and made it instead, so sort of beat Ray to it. And that wasn't the first time that George Powell beat Ray Harryhausen to a H.G. Wells film. But maybe we should have a quick look at that.
Absolutely, yes,
And
definitely.
see what we potentially missed out on.
Yeah. And it's coming any minute now. Even now, being as old as I am, sitting this close to the screen, is actually some of those images are really quite terrifying. So talk us through some of what we've just seen.
So you will have seen some test footage there for War of the Worlds. When Ray was pitching to studios, he would do a demo reel, a test reel, what we might call now a sizzle reel. And the same with the artwork. The artwork was created often so that he could pitch to studios to try and raise funding, but also to develop the idea in his own mind. But it was frustrating that War of the Worlds he worked on for a long time. And you can see the different styles here. In these early decades, Ray was trying different genres, he was trying different styles of art.
Yes, because in
So
some cases you should think, is that actually Ray? Harryhausen? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So some of the later films, Ray tried to make less films later, but make them better. So as we get through to the 70s and 80s, there are less film opportunities, but those he did try, the artwork is much more sophisticated. But it must be a surprise to you because these were before you came along, so you know this is what your dad did.
Well, yeah, no, it was fun finding these in the archive and everything, and I didn't know he did some oil paintings and things too.
Yes. Yes. Yes, because there is a story about one of the paintings in particular. Did you watch it? I was wondering if Connor might want to talk about it, but do you know what I'm referring to?
The Joseph Gandhi.
Yes. Did you watch it? Because Vanessa's just mentioned it, so I think that might be good to talk about.
Well, Joseph Gandhi was a very well-known artist. Ray had in his lounge Jupiter Pluvius, which is an imagination of Olympus. And of course, this informed Ray's view of Olympus adjacent the Argonauts and Flash and the Titans. And the Foundation has loaned it to the Tate Britain, where it's been restored, and we shot a restoration video, and it was very successful. It increased the footfall at Tate Britain substantially, so much so that they came to us, didn't they, Vanessa, after 18 months and said, we'd like to do a whole room of your father's work.
And it was amazing, it really was. It was lovely to see it restored, because I've lived with that picture since I was wee, and it was always in our study, which was quite a small room, and this huge picture just overtook the room. So it's nice now that the public and people can appreciate, something that we took for granted, really.
Yes, and to see it in a slightly bigger room.
Yes, it's beautiful. And they did the room red, especially, didn't they?
Cinema red.
Yes, it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
This is fabulous cinema, so this is cinema red here, isn't it? Because I'm seeing the same red colour in other places here. But the fascinating thing about the Lost Movies book was when I was asked to write the book, Titan Books asked me, how many Lost films do you think qualify? And I said, about 45 or 50. When we finished, there were 80.
Oh gosh, that's
I know,
amazing.
isn't that incredible?
I mean, that's astounding, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, I can't wait to see the book. Really.
It came out on Tuesday.
Yeah, I haven't got my copy yet.
It is selling like hotcakes. I mean, we are really genuinely very surprised.
I'm not
pleased.
surprised at all.
It's Ray's legacy, really.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
So, that's great. So should we move on to the 50s?
Yes.
Let's move on to the 50s now.
Glamorous 1950s.
Very glamorous 1950s, yes. Okay. John, am I right in thinking, because we've just seen the seventh Voyage of Sinbad, did we see some never-before scenes there?
Yes, that's right. There were some scenes that were cut from the film in an early stage, but there was pre-production artwork for it you would have seen there.
Yeah.
And as you rightly noted, there was a cheeky actor cameo.
Yeah, my dad was in a bit.
He was in Elementals.
Did anyone notice?
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Because, what better way to give actor direction than do it yourself? Do it yourself, as Ray often used to say.
If a job's worth doing, it's worth doing yourself.
And in those days, it would be harder to explain to actors who've never done, as they talk about green screen now, actors are more familiar with it. But at the time, to get that performance, they said, well, I'll do it myself. And he was very resourceful in that sense, because he was in terms of family-like. He was a practical person.
Just involved in every step of the way, really. Yes.
Yes. And he worked with the actors and that, and a lot of them will verify that, you know.
Yes.
And stayed good friends as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is lovely, isn't it?
It's really old school.
You've
Yes.
seen some of those sketches, those early sketches, they were on pieces of paper that you just wouldn't know they were there. I mean, every piece of paper we have to double check, triple check, because there's wee sketches and there's doodles and all sorts, and we found these. It was amazing.
Amazing. I mean, it's just fantastic that he kept all this stuff.
Yeah.
You know, because most people say, oh, that's just, I'll chuck it away, but you've actually got everything. He didn't really throw anything away, which is fantastic for us.
Yeah.
But the slight downside is because there's 50,000 items in the Foundation collection. Had this been a book about Jason Martin or the Golden Voyage of Sinbad, everything is catalogued and we can recognise it. But a lot of the artwork for the unmade films, in fact all of it, was separate from its writing material. So it really was a kind of a detective job to track down
Yes, and
these.
he tried to put the jigsaw together.
Yes.
What is this and where is it? That's amazing. It's a real labour of love.
Well, the very final piece I found from the 1950s was a sketch of a whale breaking through water, crescent water, with sailors on the boats, and it was for a scene that had been planned for John Huston's Moby Dick.
Oh wow, I wouldn't have thought that.
So who'd have thought, you know, when we think there's unmade Sinbad films or unmade dinosaur films, that's surprising. But when you see some of the films Ray was involved with or tried to get the options for, it's really, you know, it takes a breath away, really.
Yeah. Thank you, thank you. So let's move on. We're going to go to the 1960s now, and I think we've got here as well some never before seen night scenes from my favourite film, Jason and the Argonauts.
Well, what we've done here is, originally the skeleton sequence at the end of Jason was to be set at night time, but the censors said no. To receive its family certification, the film has to be set in the daytime, at brunch.
Wow.
So the skeletons weren't allowed to be shown at the witching hour. So what we've done is a rather rudimentary sort of day to night sequence. So when Jason comes up here, you get a sense of the night time. I have spoken to Columbia Pictures. They've done a 4K scan of the film. We're hoping that for next year we'll have a proper nighttime scene as an option only, on the 4K release.
Fantastic.
So that's the 1960s. So many fabulous things in the 60s, including another attempt at H.G. Wells.
Right, oh yes, of course, and again, there's a story there about turning down.
Yeah.
Right, let's have a look at that. Let's run the 60s.
Yes. Just an example of what it looks like.
Yeah.
But surprisingly, at the end, Ray tried to option the rights to the Conan novels. So of course the idea of doing ultra-violence with sword and sandal was something studios weren't very happy about. But it was lucky for me, that was only going to be 2 or 3 lines in the book. But luckily for us, our conservator Alan Friswell, who's here in the front row, and really deserves an applause for the restorations he does on all of his.
I think we should do that
because Alan's a very big fan of those Conan novels and was able to recount to me the story of what happened and what should have happened. So now that's really an engaging chapter in the book.
Yes.
And so without the external contributors, people like Alan, there's other people here who contributed artwork I'll talk about later, it really has been a collaborative effort. So lots in the archive, but lots of external contributors to speak with. That was really important.
Yes, and so something you knew was going to be big actually turned out to be even bigger still, because it just kept coming, and more sort of information and more people with other things to say. I think it's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. So we're going to go into the 70s now, and I know, is that your favourite?
My favourite.
Okay, so,
favourite, for various reasons. Well, for Ray's films.
I'm hoping you'll talk about that in a minute, but I just want to mention just before we go into it, and certainly tell us when we've seen the clips, Ray turned down the biggest monster movie remake of all time.
True.
I mean, there's definitely a story there, and we're talking about King Kong, so perhaps when we've seen the clips, you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, and sort of within the 70s, Ray was being offered lots of things. Golden Voyage of Sinbad, of course, was the big film for the 70s, the big success that Ray had, and scenes from that were cuts, and some of those you can see on the cover of the book. But Ray was offered 2 big films that he turned down, one which had an enormous budget, of course, was the King Kong remake, when he was contacted by Dino De Laurentiis in Christmas 1975, who rang him directly at home, his West London home, and said, I'm making this remake of King Kong, we have an enormous budget, I want you to do the special effects, the giant gorilla. And Ray said, this is fantastic, yes, I've always wanted to remake this film. It's, as you saw in the short at the beginning, it's the film that influenced him to become a filmmaker. So they had all the money they needed, so Ray's next question was, how long have we got? And Dino De Laurentiis says, we need to be in theatres in 12 months. Because he was an Italian. So it wasn't possible, because Ray Harryhausen would need 12 months just to prepare a film. So
Dino didn't do his research.
Yeah, but I mean, Dino De Laurentiis, he's a great man, he did great films, and sadly Ray turned down Dino De Laurentiis again in the 80s for one of my favourite films from the 80s, and also turned down David Lynch at the same time.
Yeah.
We'll get to that, well, I know it's shocking how very
Okay,
it is.
that I didn't come up in my research.
Well, we'll get to that. But so in the 70s, an example of a film that really could have benefited from Ray Harryhausen's input, when Ray wasn't available, they effectively used glove puppets for dinosaurs, and that's going to be in the 70s sequence as well. But the 70s wraps up with perhaps one of the most influential pieces of art in the book, not by Ray Harryhausen, by Chris Foss, who's an artist and illustrator, whose work sells for hundreds of thousands of pounds today. He's done album covers and novel covers for Asimov and lots of others. He did artwork for Sinbad Goes to Mars, the only copies of which are in the Foundation's archive, and one of which was incomplete. Incomplete, is it incomplete or incomplete? Incomplete. And he finished it for this book. At the same time he was working for Sinbad Goes to Mars, he was working with Ridley Scott's on Alien, he was working with Alejandro Jodorowsky on The Unmade Jew.
Well done on the pronunciation.
Thank you very much. And with Stanley Kubrick on AI, and AI was going to be a possibility in 1980.
Wow.
So you can see the influence of all of that industrial brutalism in Chris Foss's art. So here comes my favourite decade, 1970s.
I can understand now why it's your favourite decade. Let's have a look at this. Amazing, amazing. So did you want to say any more about the 70s before we move on to the 80s?
No, I mean, within the book there are
Yeah.
many more films. These are just a kind of a taste of some of the
Yeah.
categories: Young Maid, The Offers, and the deleted scenes. But the 80s there were less films, but they were much bigger budgets, and there was much bigger problems. You know, on Ray's last film, it was the biggest budget, and by goodness, were there big problems.
And you're going to tell us some of those, because that'll make for an interesting story, I think, further down the line today.
Yes.
So we're going to go into the 80s, and there's two things I wanted to mention here. Harry Hamlin, the actor, a very famous actor, even today, he's not dead. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know the story, but it did come up in my research. Did he have a little bit of a tantrum along with Medusa in the Clash of the Titans film? Because, I mean, that just sounds, one shouldn't laugh, but one is laughing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, Harry Hamlin. Did you not know? Yes, well, Harry Hamlin clashed with Medusa on Clash of the Titans. It sounds like crazy headline. Harry Hamlin was cast for Clash of the Titans because of his youthful appearance. He looked the part, he was a fine actor. He had never acted in a motion picture before. He was making his motion picture debut. And the producers were offered the money through Orion Pictures if they cast Arnold Schwarzenegger as Perseus. And Ray thought about it briefly and decided it wouldn't be right for this film. Of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger went on to great success in the 80s with Conan, ironically, and other films, Terminator and so on. Harry Hamlin was a student of Greek mythology. Now, for people who know Clash of the Titans well and know Greek mythology well, the two are rather incompatible because the film is a combination of short stories and creatures from other mythologies, such as the Kraken, which is actually an octopus from Nordic mythology and not a sort of a four-armed reptilian monkey as is in Clash of the Titans. So the idea of being particular about the historical fact is a bit rich.
Yes.
So Harry Hamlin's gone on record, so I'm not saying anything out of school here, but he threw a massive tantrum, even though he was under contract. The film had been storyboarded, everything had been agreed, that he beheads Medusa with a frisbee throw of the magic shield, because you can't get close to Medusa because she'll turn you to stone. So it doesn't make sense you try and kill her from a distance. He said no, he's not prepared to do that. He wants to behead her with his sword up close to the personal knife. So
Weird.
It's strange.
Americans.
I don't know. Americans and weapons, what can you say? It's one of the shooter, wasn't it? So Ray and Charles Schneer argued with the actor both ways and said, look, can we shoot both versions? And this is going to be very difficult because we've already storyboarded and so on. But the wheels were in motion beyond the film. In the early 80s, colour print was very expensive. It had to be done sometimes up to 2 years in advance.
Wow.
So a graphic novel was being produced that was being co-funded by MGM through Looking magazine. And Looking magazine had the early scripts, which had the early pre-title sequence to Clash of the Titans, which never made it to the screen, and the beheading of Medusa via the frisbee throw, which we call it as. That went to press and went to print, and the film came out with the alternative version. I don't think it did Harry Hamlin any favours, because if you know the mechanics of the film, if you've ever been a producer, and you've ever been involved in what's called a completion guarantee, it's a form of insurance where you have to go and inform the insurance anything unusual happens in that day, whether it's camera failure or catering failure, if people have, become ill from food. The chances of Charles Schneer not picking up the phone to the insurance company, because Charles Schneer was quite the kind of professional, let's put it that way, with capital P. Harry Hamlin on his first film had a flag against his name for future films, and it would have made it difficult for him to work on other films. And he has worked on films, as we know, but I've always wondered whether that fight, which he spoke himself about publicly 2 or 3 years ago, actually curtailed the career he should have had.
Yes, because he's a star, but he's not the big star that he could have been. Yeah.
I think he's a better actor than Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I think Schwarzenegger was brilliant. I love those films. And you think about the mirror careers that they had or didn't have.
Yes.
Interesting.
It
But we put together the death sequence for Medusa along with the original storyboards that Ray created for the shoot that have never been seen before. These are technical storyboards created on the shoot day. And I mean, every shoot day costs money, thousands of pounds. Clash of the Titans costs 15, no, it's more than that, do the math, 17 times what the Golden Voyage of Sinbad cost.
Wow.
So Golden Voyage of Sinbad was £900,000.
Ordinary.
Clash
It's ridiculous.
it's crazy. Clash of the Titans was 15.5 million. So with bigger budgets came much bigger problems, but that's a whole other story. But
For Clash, where Ursulander is chained up to the rocks, at lunchtime, just before they were going to do that shoot, they needed to line up the cameras and just have a check that everything was all right. And Mum and I were hanging around waiting for Dad. And he said, Vanessa, just go over there and stand by the rocks. And the next thing I knew, my hands were all in shackles and they were taking pictures. They were just lining it up for the next shoot.
So you did it first.
So I did it first. I was just a stand-in for the afternoon shoot. So we have an awful picture of me there, chained up against the rocks, and I'm not very proud of it. No. It was, it was fun at the time.
Is this picture in the book?
I was going to say, no, it's not in my book. Is it anyone else's book?
Well, we're going to talk about that in a little while. So, okay, now we're going to come back to you about that, because that's very exciting and something we'll talk about later. So let's run the 80s. Brilliant. Final words. Force of the Trojans, 1984. Tell us a bit about that in development right now.
Yes, well, Force of the Trojans was originally going to be the next film after Clash of the Titans.
Yeah.
So it was a big budget film, Clash. It made more money than any other of Ray's films did in the past. I think it made more than the last 7. I tried to do maths recently. Add up the last 7 films.
You're no Harold Boardman.
Well, no.
You're not bad.
Much younger.
Do you know, but that's amazing, isn't it? Because as you said earlier, that was the most expensive. He threw so much money
But
at
the
that
most
one.
successful. So the
And
next film should be guaranteed.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
And in a sense it was. The momentum was, yes, we'll do Force of the Trojans, yes, we'll go again. But when we talked earlier about the criticisms of the film not sticking to Greek mythology adamantly, then the new script written by Beverly Cross, who'd written Clash and Jason and the Argonauts, took the criticisms to heart and wrote something which is virtually impenetrable. It's a fine script, it's impenetrable. I've read it several times. John Landis read it, and he said it was awful. So what we've done is we've contacted Charles Shear's company Morningside, and we've put together a development agreement. I've rewritten it, keeping all of Ray's creatures in that you can see on the screen. We're not a stride towards getting it made, but we are certainly a few steps closer for it to happen. And certainly there's been a lot of interest around the book itself and the other unmade films. So we are closer after 40 years of maybe bringing Force of the Trojans back to theatres. Wouldn't that be exciting?
Oh, golly, I hope so. And of course, with the success of the book, hopefully that will open up more interest. And I'll be interviewing you both again on this stage about that. I'm certain of it. Absolutely certain of it. Was there anything else you wanted to say before we have our final words from Ray?
Well, I just want to say that in the book it goes beyond the 80s. We go right up until the 2000s, because Ray was receiving offers of work, and it's always fascinating to see from the outside the work he's been offered, and there was fascinating television work and so on. But there's much too much for us to go into all of it today.
This is part 1. We need to do a part 2. You do realise this, don't you? We're going to get you back here, definitely.
But people at the list that you would have seen, I've got to mention, that was going to be with his friend and neighbour, Michael Winner, who lived about 6 doors away.
I also have the pleasure of watching Dad do a lot of those sketches upstairs in Dad's studio, and it was great to see the very early concepts of it all,
and then see it come together.
So it's nice to see that.
What a fantastic, unique position you were in as Ray's daughter. I mean, it's just incredible. And there's definitely a whole Q&A there for you. I'm telling you, we're going to get you back without anybody else, because that's another big story, and I'm sure people would love to hear about it. Yes, we are going to come to that. We're going to come to that. We'll give everything away at this point, but yes, you were saying.
So I just want, before we got to final words, I just want to thank a few people who turned up today, because you know, I'm sort of the captain of this book, in that I've captained the contributions, I've shepherded them into the page. I didn't create the artwork, I didn't create the anecdotes, I sort of, you know, brought it together.
Which is a huge labour of love, and wonderful that you did that. You know, no mean feat, and that's, you know, thank you for doing that. So before you thank everybody else, let's just thank John.
Well, I mean, the lady I must thank, of course, is Vanessa Harryhausen, without whom there'd be no foundation today. You know, she's put heart and soul into it. Between Vanessa, myself, and Connor Heaney, our collections manager, we are the 3 musketeers on this.
And it's been great fun.
It has been fun. You know, it's had its challenges. You know, to get the collection together after your father left us. That was a challenge, and I'm pleased to say it's in the best condition and it's in the best place it's ever been. But people think of the foundation as being large, like the Walt Disney Company, because we have so many assets. But you know, the collection itself is vast and significant. But we're small.
Very small, but perfectly formed.
Absolutely, yes. So Vanessa Harryhausen, yes.
Our collections manager, Connor Heaney. Alan Friswell, our conservator, our official conservator and restorer, the only person Ray ever worked with for conservations. So we're left with the Zeb and Al. How do we conserve Alan? How do we restore Alan? The foundation's official photographer, I guess, Andy Andy Johnson. Andy, who's been doing photography for a couple of decades now. Andy, thank you so much. Up there in the thank you so much. Michael Farmer, who's also a Harryhausen ambassador now, did some artwork for the book. Thank you, Michael. John Thompson, and Angus Lamont here, young man on the stage here.
Thank you, Angus.
And animator and artist, one of our ambassadors. A very significant contribution was by an artist, an illustrator, and somebody who worked with Ray Harryhausen, what would have been Ray's biggest project ever, and that would have been the story of Odysseus. I'm very pleased that Jonathan Webb is here today and has given me an enormous amount of help with the book, with artworks. There's a whole section on the stories of Odysseus which simply would not be there had Jonathan not given up his time, his contact and his artwork. So I thank you, Jonathan. Thank you very much. A friend of the foundation, Mark Morstan, who I hope is here. Are you here, Mark? There you are. I can see you. Thank you so much. You're helping my personal photographer, I sound like I'm David Cameron with a personal photographer. Simon Harvey. Simon, are you here? No. No. I should withdraw that thanks. He's produced this beautiful photography that he took with Ray during the commentary recordings we did in 2012. Those commentaries live for all time now in photography. He took great shots with you and your dad as well. And last and thankfully, my mum and my brother David. Thanks, Mum. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Mum. Look what you did. Brilliant.
We'll get to give up another Sunday.
Thank you so much. Now, I would like to, and thank you so much, all of you, for bums on seats. It's been a slightly longer afternoon, and
worthwhile.
Very worthwhile, and it's not over yet. So, moving on, I would like to welcome, running all the way from the projection booth.
Do you want to finish your final words? Or?
Oh, God,
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh,
Robin,
bad, Robin. Bad, Robin.
No,
final words, absolutely. Absolutely, let's go.
Final words from the man himself.
The man himself, yes. Sorry, it was a bit premature.
There were a number of other stories I wanted to develop, but few of them came to the production stage. Computer animation today seems to dominate the field of entertainment, but I still believe there's room for every known technique depending on the type of tale to be told. After all, the main reason for putting anything on the silver screen is to entertain. The method used in this process is always secondary to a good, comprehensive visual story.
Now, we are moving in now, ladies and gentlemen, to the last part of this wonderful afternoon, and that is the Q&A part, and that is where you come in. Now, you've waited really patiently, and I'm sure you've all got masses of questions to ask these fabulous guys. How often do you get the chance to ask or make a comment? It doesn't have to be a question if you just want to make a comment. What I'm going to do, I'm going to start off with a question each, and then I'm going to come to you, and I'm looking for lots of hands in the air. So get ready for your bit, because that's really why we're here at the end of the day, to hear what you have to say and to answer any questions that you have. So I'd like to start off, if I may, with you, Vanessa. We're going to take it very slow now. We're not going to get too technical because we've got the boys for that. And what I'd like to know is, what was it like growing up in this world of dynamation? Was it completely normal to you? I would imagine up to a point it was. That was your dad and that was your life. And at what point did you realise that actually, no, this isn't normal and that's quite special? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, I don't know, I suppose when you hit your teenage years, you sort of realise when there's lots of fans and you're going to conventions and everything, everybody wanted a bit of him, and that was fine, that was wonderful. He was very modest in life, and it was, sometimes it's hard sharing with him, but it's also great seeing the wonderful things that he's created and, left for fans and everything. So I'm very proud and I feel very, very honoured to have that position.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you, my darling. So, Connor, if I may move on to you now, you're looking after at least, as we've heard John mention, at least 50,000 items in the archive. But I'd like to know, going back to the very beginning, how did you get to this position in the first place? What's your connection?
So I worked with a collection of aerial photography from World War II. Basically, these very brave pilots would remove the gun from their Spitfire and fly over Germany with a camera instead. And this is how the V2 rockets and the V1 rockets were discovered. So, an amazing collection, but like lots of jobs of that nature, quite short term. And so I was always looking for something else. This mysterious advert came up for film collection. Anonymous, these chaps were very cautious.
So when was this?
Circa sort of 2015, right. So about 4 years ago now. Yeah. Film collection, and I applied for this film collection at Turkey Cornwall, which is a solicitor, so I wasn't expecting anything too exciting. When I got the letter through to say it was the Ray Harryhausen collection, I nearly fell off my seat, because I was a big fan, and my mum brought me up on all of these films, and then I saw I was going to be interviewed by Vanessa, Harryhausen, John Walsh and Caroline Munro, so again that was very exciting, but luckily for me things went well, and it's been a real roller coaster ever since.
No pressure then.
Well, luckily I went to the interview and they were all lovely people, and we just, we hit it off, and it's all been fantastic since then. It's the greatest collection in the world, as you say, some 50,000 items. We're not exaggerating, Ray never threw anything away, and we're finding new material and bits and pieces all the time, and for a project like this, it gives us a great opportunity to delve in. So for the research into this book, it's like, John, guess what we found now? And I had the greatest assistant of all, because Vanessa was helping me do a lot of the sort of manual work of numbering items, working through things, double checking boxes full of her dad's sketches and odds and ends that he kept. And really, it's just wonderful. We're finding new things all the time, and the collection has a lot.
Christmas. Every day, because you never know with a little box that's tucked away what little treasure you're going to find.
And with Alan Friswell working with us as well, he's such an expert on Ray's work. He'll come up to Scotland and I'll say, Alan, I found this, what was this? And he'll go, oh, of course! And it'll be some lost treasure from the past that's been in an archive box, or sometimes a toolbox for decades. So very exciting.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Connor. John, and then get ready because it's your turn next. But I would like to ask you. Now, you were 18, I believe, when you contacted Ray yourself through, wait for this, the phone book. I mean, that would never happen now. You'd have agents and managers and PR gonks to get through. Oh, sorry if there's any PR. Lovely PR people. Sorry, I didn't say that word. It was a different time. I wanted to ask you, what was it at that time that grabbed your imagination and made you do that, contact Ray in that way?
Well, I've always been a great fan of Ray's films. I was a student at the London Film School when I was 18. Yeah. It was unusual. I look young in that picture.
You still haven't changed. What is the secret? But anyway, carrying on.
Well, what did your dad used to say about me?
He was Dorian Gray, he had a
In my case, it's probably a pneumatic tape, pneumatic somewhere where it was ever played. So I was 18 and it was a postgrad course, so all the other students were sort of in their 20s. And I was doing my own stop motion animation before I was filming with actors even, because in terms of confidence it's easier to work with inanimate objects. So I would love going to see the films. My parents would always take me in half terms, any Ray Harryhausen film that was out. The third term at the London Film School was the documentary term, 16mm, sync sound, it's the big one. You needed to do a subject that was going to be interesting, but also be part of your VHS showreel, as it would have been back in those days. So I plumbed for this. I knew that Ray lived in London. I didn't know much more than that, so it started with the BT telephone directory. He was listed. He wasn't ex-directory because it would have costed more. So I rang him up, and in my little South London accent said, "Oh, no, is that Ray Harryhausen? It's John Walsh here." And he didn't know who I was. And now, someone like Ray Harryhausen would never invite a film student into their house, and their significant house in West London, where all of the treasures from his film legacy were there. And this was in the late 1980s. So we hit it off, we spoke about films, I made that short documentary. I had Tom Baker narrating for me.
I was going to say the wonderful Tom Baker we heard at the beginning.
Tom Baker, who won the role of Doctor Who after appearing in The Golden Voyage of Sinbad. So, there was a lovely connection there. And I stayed in touch with Ray over the years and would share with him when I'd have something on television and so on. But we kind of really clicked. And in later years, when I recorded commentaries for the foundation, he asked me to become a trustee.
Yeah.
And I just think he felt that, another filmmaker who had an interest, but had their own thing going on as well, would maybe be a good fit to work with Vanessa. Yeah. Because at that stage, it would have been just Vanessa.
Just me.
Just Vanessa.
Yeah. But I mean, he recognised that. I mean, it was a wonderful time, that sort of innocent, and you said your father was quite humble. I mean, I can't imagine anybody else just picking up the phone and saying, it was a different time, wasn't it? And he was all about the thing. And if you were the right person for, as you found Connor, and he was the right fit, and you grabbed him, and that's what he did with you. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful. I didn't know the answer to that, but I just thought maybe some of our audience members would want to
he was
know.
very generous with his time.
Incredibly generous.
And here's an example. A young man in the 1950s, late 50s, sent him a mask of the Cyclops from Voyage of Sinbad with the horn, the eye. And Ray wrote back, as he often would write back on his typewriter, and said to this young man, "You're doing very good work, stick with it, you'll have a great career, I'm sure." That young man was Rick Baker.
Oh.
He has 7 Oscars to his name.
Wow.
And he actually did the special effects on King Kong 1976. He was the man in the gorilla suits.
Oh.
And he did American Werewolf in London, lots of movies. He's a great fan of the foundation. So
Great friend.
And a great friend. And so he kind of was geared on, G'd up by letters from Ray Harryhausen. Other people didn't take the call. In an industry that's full of takers, Ray Harryhausen gave of his time.
Absolutely.
For people who don't work in film and TV, they might think that's odd. But for people who do, they know,
Yeah.
Can I just say that all through my childhood, whether it was in LA or whether it was in London, we had people just turn up. And Mum would give them cups of tea, whether it was be in California or here, and Dad would come down and give people their time. And I just thought that was really lovely.
Yeah, I mean, he was the real deal.
Yeah.
That was what he was.
And I think he probably, if he was still alive today, he'd probably still do it.
Absolutely.
It's just the way he was.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, John, for that. I just wanted to hear that story again. So where is my first question? Where's my first hand in here? Don't talk about, wonderful. So, lovely, and then we'll bring them. So we're going to, can you put your hands up again? So we're going to go first here, then we're going to, we're going to go, okay. So what's your name and keep your hands up so we can come to you.
My name's Steve. John, congratulations on the book, it looks fantastic. I guess my question to you all is, and you mentioned Force of the Trojans, but my question is, if you could turn one of these lost movies into a movie now, be it one of the ones that hasn't been a movie or a remake, which would it be and why?
That's a good question.
It would be Force of the Trojans because we have the most materials for that. It was one of the reasons we chose Force of the Trojans. But if it was which film would I most like to remake, it would be Golden Voyage of Sinbad. I even spoke to somebody at Sony about it, about putting like a contemporary, it's called a contemporary wrap around it. You didn't know that, did you? So those would be the two, but Force of the Trojans would have the most chance in terms of fundraising. It would be very, very expensive to do, but look, Dark Crystal came back, costed 200 million. Who would have thought that? Jim Henson, back in the day, that film was perceived to be not the punch-through hit it should have been, and yet everything that's old is new again. The Lion King and so on.
So what are the barriers for that not happening then? What's holding that back?
Well, as it turns out, not that much actually, because a few years ago there wasn't that much interest in sword and sample epics, but now there is much more. And the book has been a kind of quite a well-known producer said to me, it's a great pitch document.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I would love to talk to you again, but we're going to go to the gentleman here, and then we're coming to the lovely lady over there.
Hi, John. Force of the Trojans, stop motion or CG? And if stop motion, who's going to do it?
Thanks, that's a great question there from John Stevenson, the director of Kung Fu Panda and
wow.
and Sherlock Holmes. So thank you for coming.
Well, Kung Fu Panda, one of my favourites.
That's a big question. It's the one we most get asked at Comic-Con. How would you resolve the issue of isn't everything CG today? The plan for Force of the Trojans is to have a final confrontation between a CG creature and a stop motion one. And it'd be for audiences to see when they go to the film which one wins out. But I suspect, you know, it could be I think it'd have to be. But and it's never really been done before in a major motion picture to combine both techniques, the photochemical world of the past with CG, and photochemical is commercially viable. You know, you think of all of the films like Isle of Dogs, Kubo and Two Strings. Once you can make money from this, you're back in the game. And now Ray and his films are back in the game.
Fantastic. So, what's your name, darling? And who's your question to?
My name is Arthur.
Hello.
And I wanted to know, like, how did he put the Cyclops and things on from the seventh voyage of Sinbad? How did he put the Cyclops and all the monsters and all the crazy sort of fun things that were actually added onto the sort of movie? How were they actually put from some sort of stop motion into the actual live action film? Right. Were they taped onto the film as in printed stuff, or how were they made?
Yeah, so what was the actual best to answer
The
that?
processes are much simpler than you might imagine. So if we imagine this tabletop here, this would be, say, the Cyclops placed in front of a projection screen, yeah? And on the projection screen are the sailors that you've already filmed on location in Malta, or Lanzarote. And as you move the projection screen on one frame at a time, you'll move the creature in front of the projection screen, an increment of frame, and there'll be a camera in front filming the monster and live action men shot 6 months ago. And it's incredibly meticulous and, dare I say, very tedious. You have to get it right each frame. And 24 individual movements would account for 1 second of screen time. So when you see something that's going on for quite a few minutes, you can imagine, well, that's quite a few weeks and months. But that was the most common way that he would combine live action and stop motion. And he coined the phrase dynamation, the way he did it.
Yes.
But there were other techniques to use as well, but that was, if you like, the principal one. That's a very good question.
Arthur, are you interested in maybe doing this as a career in the future, or?
Yeah, I've even made my own sort of things already.
Wow.
I know how to
You can ask the mic back. Just tell us what you're saying again with the mic.
So, I really know how to stick an image offline onto one my faces, and then keep stop motioning it on my own background off the internet, and then keep adding frames and then keep moving everything.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find some apps that can do some green or something. I really don't know, because you can't find apps that are not subscription or something that you have to buy, that aren't just something that you can make special effects and go somewhere proper.
Absolutely.
And it looks too much like a stop motion reel. I can't make it look like I'm moving.
Do you know what, Arthur? After this Q&A is over, we'll meet up in the bar, and I'm sure there'll be lots of people that will be able to help you with that question. Thank you very much for that. Thank you. Sorry.
I was going to say, as a bit of follow-up to that, as part of our centenary celebrations next year to celebrate Ray Harryhausen's centenary, we are going to be announcing a Ray Harryhausen Award and a scholarship, and we're also going to be doing some film school outreach work, where we're going to work with young people such as yourself, Arthur. So if you get in touch with the foundation next year, maybe we can do something with you.
Please come forward. Really nice.
Excellent. Yes, there you go. Let's go to the gentleman behind. What's your name?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Bobby. I'm a big fan of Harryhausen. Can I just say that, first of all, thank you for bringing out this book. I've been waiting for something like this for a long, long time, so thank you. My question is to Vanessa. Having grown up as the daughter of Harry, what do you consider, from your personal experience, his greatest inspiration for making and doing the work which he did, which we're all here for, and it's wonderful. What's your take on it? What inspired him, in your eyes, to create basically the characters?
Well, all through my life, I've known him talk about King Kong, the original King Kong, and that was the most dramatic thing that happened to him in his life, and that's what made him want to go forward to make all the creatures and other films. It just, I can't remember how many times I watched it, but it had a lasting effect, and I'm glad it did.
Yes.
Yeah. Anytime King Kong was in theatres, he'd go to watch it with his very good pal Ray Bradbury.
Oh.
Who happens to be my uncle too.
Yeah, and interestingly, it's Ray Bradbury centenary next year as well.
Yes, lots of fantastic things. Thank you. Another good question. So, who have we got over here with the microphone, darling? What's your name and what do you have to say?
My name's Seb. What's your favourite Harryhausen movie?
And who's that? Is that to all the panel?
Like to all of you?
To all of them. So we'll go across. Let's start with you, John.
For me, it's Voyage of Sinbad.
I suppose mine would be Golden Voyage, but also Wanji.
Oh, yes. Good choice. Have you heard of that one? Yes, you have. Of course you have. And Connor?
I have to say Seven's Voyage of Sinbad, the one we've just watched. I think it's perfect.
So what's your favourite one?
Probably the movie that we just watched.
Oh, right. Okay, so what's your second favourite one? Yes. Good answer. Very good answer. I'll follow you through with our answer. Fantastic. Listen, whoever's got another question, they better be as good as these ones. These kids they are just knocking it out of the park with their questions. So let's go to the gentleman here. Hello.
Yes, hello, my name is Richard Hollis. I'm not as young as these kids, but I must say it's great that they're watching Ray's films, isn't it marvellous?
Yeah.
My question is really for Connor, Vanessa, and for John. Congratulations on the book, John. Can you tease us or give us some ideas of what else is planned for next year for Ray's 100th?
Well, I'll talk about some of it. And then
Yes.
So we are talking to some film studios about bringing some of Ray's films back. We are talking about bringing some of Ray's previous films out in new formats. So 4 of Ray's films are in 4K, but they don't have UHD releases. So people who are real tech heads here like 4Ks. Jason the Argonaut, 7 Voyage of Sinbad, and First Men in the Moon, and Gulliver, 3 Worlds of Gulliver, are in 4K. So we're hoping to do some kind of collection with Sony. There is also some talk at the moment as well about doing a film of the book. So we might be doing a Lost Movies feature doc.
What a brilliant idea!
I know.
Oh my goodness. Okay, that you've got to come back for. Make it happen.
But Vanessa can take up very special plans for next year for a very special release.
Yeah, I've been asked to do a small fun book, a coffee table book, for Dad's 100th birthday. So I've chosen 100 items that some are iconic, some aren't. And just stories about them and growing up in the house with a wonderful father who creates all these amazing creatures, and some funny stories. I'm not going to say much more, we haven't got a title for it, but it'll come out next year for Dad's birthday. Yeah, and some lovely photographs that haven't been seen, and hopefully it'll give people a lot of happy memories as well.
And it's definitely going to include the picture of you tied up.
Possibly.
Great. And Connor, to you.
I actually found a second photo of Vanessa tied up recently as well, so I've got a double whammy there. Just to tie in as well with Vanessa's book, we were talking about King Kong earlier. Today would actually have been Fay Ray's birthday, the star of King Kong. We were chatting about this on the plane down this morning, and Vanessa just happened to mention, I remember meeting Fay Ray, so that's sort of an insight into the type of stories that will be coming in Vanessa's book. But this all ties into Ray's centenary. He would have been 100 years old on the 29th of June 2020. So we're hosting a massive exhibition of the archive of Ray's work in my hometown, Edinburgh, in Scotland, at the National Galleries of Scotland. We've got an entire building, and we're going to get as much of the collection in there as possible, and we'd love to invite you all there. Edinburgh is a beautiful city, and it would be great to see you all next year. Come and see as many of Ray's models as we can possibly fit in, and some of his life story too, some of the personal stories behind Ray's long and productive life, and we're really looking forward to next year. We've got some flyers and some bits and pieces just outside when you leave today, and please, I would love to see as many of you as possible there. It's so exciting.
Well, so thank you for that question. I really mean that, but, there is but, those are going to be actually my last questions, and we're not even at the end yet, so thanks for that. So we're going to carry on, And I'm not going to do my final questions because the lovely gentleman's already asked them. But we will carry on. I've got some more questions for you guys. But where is my next hand? Because I did see lots of hands shooting up. Okay, so we're going to come to you in a minute. So just there, and then, darling, we're going to come down here. So what's your name?
Jeremy Clark. The book is called Harryhausen The Lost Movies. I think of Ray, and I think of things that have been talked about, like stop frame, putting animated creatures into live action. I wonder if, and this is a question for any or all of you, in the course of researching this book and going through boxes and notes and whatever, did you ever come across something that looked like a technique Ray wanted to try that he'd never done, that you thought, wow?
Okay.
I mean, yes, there is another potential technical book to be made. I've asked Alan Friswell if he'd consider doing that, where there's others. I'm right in saying that, Alan, aren't I? That Ray wanted to do other techniques. In later films, he was moving the camera. So if you think about Clash of the Titans, when the Lord of the Marsh appears, there's like a small kind of jib up or crane shot around his feet, so you can see he has a clothing move. That wasn't motion control, that was done sort of freestyle, if you will. And so Ray was going to move the camera more. So for Force of the Trojans, there would be more camera movement, possibly motion control rigs as well. If we think Empire Strikes Back in 1980, which Ray was involved with, if you get the book, you'll see the picture of him at ILM. They were using motion control for stop motion sequences. So yes, I think he was going to be adopting more techniques. He was a technical innovator. Seven Voyage of Sinbad, the first Technicolor film to use stop motion animation. So many of Ray's films, he technically innovated. First Men in the Moon, the first anamorphic film to use stop motion animation. So he was always interested in new techniques. We might look now at his films and think these are from the past, but he wasn't in the past. He was always at the cutting edge. And those great words he said at the end here, he was very interested in digital technology. When he was working with the team at Cosgrove Hall on the story of Odysseus, computer graphics were being used for the first time on screen. He was very interested in that, the digital pencil, as he called it. It was terrific.
That's a very good question. I had it here. So thanks for that. It's brilliant. See, our audience are fantastic. Really, really fabulous audience. And I had, Ray lived well into the age of computer animation. He didn't need those techniques, I felt, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, and I was going to say, what did he think, what did he make of this, new evolving way of animating? And I think you sort of answered that, but is there a little more you can give?
Yeah, but the bitterness about it is that the new landscape that was created by a young inheritor of the Harryhausen crown, like Phil Tippett and Dennis Muren at ILM, who are big friends of Ray and the Foundation, pushed Ray to the sidelines. Ray was the only show in town for so many years, yet new technologies through Star Wars and what was being done with motion control, which was using computers to move the camera and remember the movements. So it wasn't on-screen computer graphics, but it was using technology in a way that Ray didn't use it. That was pushing him to the edges. It's great that he lived long enough to see his films being reassessed, because for a long time he felt he was being retired by the industry, against his own will, really. Because he had all these films planned in the 80s, so it wasn't a happy time.
Well, I think he also felt, I think also he felt that he just needed to back off a bit, because there was a new technique coming through, and he wanted other people to come and try it, and it gave him a rest too, because you never have a rest, It took so long doing all this animation.
Yeah, but they would have, my feeling is they would have benefited greatly from keeping him in the picture, not from pushing him away. I mean, that's just my personal feeling. Thank you, yes.
Times change.
Well, they do. But here we are today, still watching Ray's films and still getting audiences from very old to the very young. I mean, it's incredible, and I'd like to see somebody else achieve that. So, well done, Ray.
He is also getting homage from, some of the big names, Jackson and other people. Quite right, absolutely.
There's a forward in the book. We were going to ask one filmmaker, we ended up with 5 well-known filmmakers.
Yes.
So we have people who you would expect and people that perhaps you wouldn't. So we have John Borman, Guillermo del Toro, John Landis, Nicholas Meyer, Mike Hodges, all talking about Ray's lost films and their own unmade projects. And it's quite a bitter pill for filmmakers to go through life with so many unmade projects. And surprising, so some of them have revealed exclusively in the book about their own.
Absolutely, but I mean, you know, so I just hate the idea of him being upset in any way. I'm not his daughter. You know, the legacy that he's left, and we wouldn't have had any number of, or any of the things that we've got today, animation-wise, if it wasn't for him. That's my feeling. So, you know, he might have been sort of thwarted, or, you know, people didn't want to involve him towards the end, but he'd already done so much more than any of these people, so boo our sucks to them.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Where is my next question?
Yes,
there you are, darling.
Hi, my name's Oliver, and I enjoyed watching the film and seeing the little excess. I kind of realised I've been inspired by these things, and I've forgotten they came from him. When I was a kid, I used to watch those black and white monster movies, and they completely scared me.
Yes.
And I was wondering, sometimes you hear these people, cultural people that talk about, oh yeah, the monster movies of the 40s, they reflected the fears of the war. And do you think Harryhausen's career and the films he made do have this connection to the world around him at the time, like the Cold War and the fear of radiation and the rise of fascism? Are the monster movies, do they reflect on these things at all, do you think, or is it over?
Yeah, they do, but because when you're pitching to studios, you're kind of hemmed into what they want from you, so eventually you're pitching to what they want. So when you see the films that Ray really wanted to have done, if he was given free rein, then it wouldn't have followed the cultural narrative. But those black and white films, as the kind of trilogy of films, do talk about Cold War paranoia, are all about the aliens or the foreigners, and do sort of plug in to what similar audiences were being fed by the government at the time. So it was an easier commission. So if you were producing at the time, then an aggressive alien invasion would be yes from the studios, whereas something that's more charming, like E.T., no.
Yeah.
Because, you know, and it's so hard to get a yes. There were a handful of major studios that completely controlled the content. That worked for Ray. In today's environment, where it's much more sporadic, with streaming services, it would be more difficult to pin down what Ray was doing. So studio chiefs would last in their jobs for sometimes decades. Now a studio chief can last in their job for 18 months. So if you commission a Harryhausen film and 3 years later it's being delivered, you're possibly moved on somewhere else. So there was a lack of continuity now that meant his films really couldn't get made in the 80s and onwards. At the time, he benefited from that. So those films were focused not because he wanted to do paranoid invasion films, but because that's what he could get green light for.
Thanks.
That was a brilliant question, Heather. Well, I mean, aren't they fantastic? Really, such great questions. Time is moving on, so we don't have a lot of time. So do I have any more questions? Yes, and then we've got, so just here, darling, and then over there. Thank you.
Hi, John.
Hi, what's your name?
Jonathan Webb. I was intrigued by one of the unmade films, which was Skin and Bone, and I've only ever seen that one drawing. It looks like a zombie movie. What's the story behind that?
Well, Skin and Bone was one of the very few comedy films that Ray tried to get the option for, so that was based on a book. And it was about a photographer who found a chemical compound that would make him invisible. And initially then he would sort of, this sounds terrible to say, he would spy on girls when he was invisible, and who did such a thing?
Sounds like a Ricky Gervais sketch.
But things kind of go wrong where only his skeleton is visible and the rest of him isn't.
Right.
And so it becomes a kind of a social issue where you can't go out because people see him just as a skeleton and so on.
Right.
But that would have been a fabulous, smaller in terms of scale, in terms of on-screen animation minutes, vast.
Yeah.
And would have been really something quite...
So the whole idea was to do that all as stop motion?
Yes,
yeah, right.
Yes, all stop motion.
Right.
I think he wanted Woody Allen to play the main character.
He's the right actor.
To have a fun character. I think it'd be a fun little film.
Genius.
Get the right person.
Genius.
There are lots of casting things we found out making this Lost Movies book. Danny Kaye was asked to be Gulliver. And Gulliver was going to be a musical, all singing and dancing.
Hence Danny Kaye.
Hence Danny Kaye. And then Danny Kaye couldn't be released from his MGM contract, so they asked Jack Lemmon, who was interested but not as a sing-song.
Yes.
So they took all the songs and the choreography out, and then Jack Lemmon wasn't available. Sir Kerwin Matthews was brought in.
Amazing how these things
Incredible.
Yeah. And 1974 Sinbad was John Philip Law, who was brilliant. It could have been Richard Chamberlain, and it was nearly Michael Douglas.
No. Oh, well, thank God that didn't happen. Sorry, I mean, I love the Douglas, but no, you can't see it, can you? Fantastic. Yes, so sorry, I'm moving rather quickly because I do want everyone to have a chance to speak to our panel. So, yes, hello.
Sorry, excuse me. Hello, I'm Jeremy. Hi, John. As I said earlier, the book's brilliant. My question refers back to Clash of the Titans, where you said it was the most expensive film. Was that because of the wages of the actors, possibly because it was an all-star outfit, and then going forward, hopefully, with Force of the Trojans, are you going to hope to have an all-star cast for that?
So Clash of the Titans budget 15 million was set partly because of the talent, but also because of the amount of locations and the amount of stop motion sequences. There's more stop motion minutes in Clash than there are for the other sort of 4 or 5 Harryhausen films combined. There's virtually isn't a scene that goes past without some animation in it. So that just takes that much more time and money. Yes, if Force of the Trojans happened, it would have to happen at a similar level to Clash of the Titans. I worked out to be about 280 million.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that would be expensive, but films, Ant-Man and the Wasp cost more than that. And that did very well. Good film, Michael Douglas.
Yes.
So, those films are very popular, and a lot of the people who make those Marvel adventures do talk about Ray Harryhausen, and do talk about the way Ray choreographed the creature fights. And so, Ray's influence lives on there. But I don't know if anyone knows here that Ray actually turned down, in 1984, the very first Marvel's movie.
No, I didn't know that. Shocking, I should know
It's in the book.
I need that bloody book. Thank you. So time really is at that. Hello, my darling. Hello. I didn't see you sneak in. Hello, my friend. So time has beaten us. You've been amazing. I've got very quick questions for you guys. I'm going to get them out there, and then we're going to have to reconvene in the bar. And if anybody needs to, is that all right? If people come up and
yes, absolutely.
Yes, fantastic. So Vanessa, did you get to play with any of those fantastic figures, or was Daddy quite strict with the models? I always wanted to ask you last time. So
no, I was very lucky. I was allowed to sort of tinker and play with whatever I needed to put the camera into. There's lots of pictures of me with various creatures and stuff. And the famous one with Guanji, obviously,
yes.
and a baby buggy in there. And then we found one with Pinky the elephant. And,
the best childhood in the bloody world. I mean, seriously, thank you, Vanessa. Connor, this wonderful gentleman over there in the black shirt and with rather nice glasses, asked all my questions for the end, so I had to think of some more, but thank you for that again. So, I'm not going to ask you, but I did want to know what is next for the collection. We know you're doing Edinburgh, but what else do we have to look forward to?
So 2020 is Ray's centenary, and we really see that as a launch pad. We want the world to see Ray's collection. And we've got
Vanessa's book coming out as well, which we talked about.
All these untold stories from the archive that are appearing. We'd love people all over the world to see Ray's collection. We want to be celebrating in 2030, 2040, So that's really the way we can do that, is by cataloguing the collection to a museum standard. It's a huge collection. We're putting it all into a database called ADLib, which is the same database that the BFI use, and the Oscars, and various of national Imperial War Museum. So we're getting all this information in, and I feel like we've only really scratched the surface, because as well as cataloguing the models and the artworks and then linking them, we've got Alan's incredible restorations.
Yes, we're going to have you on stage next time, by the way, so I've got my eye on you. Definitely, next one, you're on stage, darling.
Only if you wear some famous red t-shirt. And we've recently started 3D scanning the models as well, which is like of this type of collection archiving. Having 3D scans for all of the models is such a powerful resource, because it gives us the opportunity, and asking Alan again to perhaps rebuild some of the models that have been lost over time. Because if we don't have the models themselves, there's a big chance we have the molds or the armatures. So it's there's a lot of work to do in the collection, and it's.
So you're going to be kept very busy.
I certainly hope so.
He was a good choice, wasn't he? I don't know how many people you interviewed for that job, but I think you made the right choice.
Yes.
So yes, and John, darling, coming on to you last but definitely not least. We've talked a lot about you and the foundation and this book, but you are in your own right an award-winning filmmaker. I'm not going to embarrass you now, I'm sure everybody knows. You have this and you have other things, and you're definitely someone I like to watch and see what's coming next. So what can we expect to see?
Well, I'm working on some other projects at the moment. Most of my work is almost a counterpoint to Ray's sort of fantasy genre. I tend to work in sort of areas of social mobility.
Well, I remember Tory Boy. Has anybody seen that? Google it. Go on.
Tory Boy the movie, yeah. And speaking to young people at film school.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm a public speaker as well. And I have lots of other film projects, but now my sort of professional life has sort of started to merge with the foundation. So the book took me 2 years.
It's a big part of your life,
and
we're
film
so
book
pleased.
now as well. So that's really fascinating. A few years ago, television wouldn't have been interested in a book like this, but now there's other players who are. So which is fortunate, and that's that opening 2-minute trailer that I cut together with Connor was created as a sizzle reel for a well-known online streaming service.
So exciting. Great. Ladies and gentlemen, time has beaten us. Please put your hands together.